This is the TAZ LOV 3. This is a really cool descender. It's pretty much the only descender in the world that's able to operate on lines that are not only under tension, but also lines that are under tension in diagonals. These special capabilities make it pretty much the only descender that you're ever going to see in tree work. I've seen a handful of the other ones like the Petzl Rig and ISC D4. Descenders are pretty rare, and this is pretty much the only one that you're going to see. But I'd seen so many people using it in comps for the speed ascent and aerial rescue because of how quickly it goes on and off of your rope, and also how smooth it is on the ascent. I also saw people using it for their access systems to get up in the trees and set up another double rope system or something like that. But I just wanted to know if you could use it as an all-in-one tool for working the entire tree. But before we get into any of that, let's first take a closer look at the device so we can understand what we're looking at. So let's take a closer look and explore the TAZ LOV 3. Since it's a standard descender, we have our lowering handle over here that folds up nicely and out of the way when you're working. The TAZ does not have an anti-panic system. And basically what that means is just if you start descending too quickly, it'll trip something in the device to stop the descent. That can be a little bit irritating when you're working on systems without great loads. It's nice for if you're just going up and down, but that's another thing that suits the TAZ pretty nicely for tree climbing, is that the lack of anti-panic function makes it a lot easier to pay out slack when you're limb walking and things like that. So just have the folding handle, and then something that's really nice about the TAZ is that the TAZ LOV 3, you can open the side plate without removing the carabiner from the device. On something like the GriGri Plus over here that I'm comparing it to, you have to remove the carabiner to be able to open the side plate to be able to get the rope in and out. But on the TAZ, we just have this button right here that you can depress and open the side plate of the device, and then insert your rope. And we have a little plastic toggle here that helps the device engage on the rope. So sometimes you just have to lift up that to be able to slot the rope in, and then we can go ahead and close it. And if we look at where the button is on the side of the device, it's pressed out slightly, but because you not only have to orient the carabiner properly, but also depress this through the side plate to be able to open this, I have no concern about this coming open on me in the tree. It's never even come close to happening or anything like that. So to anyone who's nervous about just being able to open it with the carabiner still in there, it's just not an issue. It's not something that's going to happen to you. You'll notice that when the TAZ is on the rope can just pass directly through the device. And that's what allows it to be used on tension systems, and so that you can use foot ascenders with it, because the rope just passes directly through the device, and it's when the device is weighted that it starts to cam into place and catch on the rope. Whereas with a more standard style descender, which here we're comparing it with the GriGri Plus, and this was actually the first, I believe, auto-blocking descender ever made, so it's a pretty great comparison, even though it's not a standard rope access style system. But basically we have a big cam in the middle here, and then kind of an anvil on the front side by the side plate. So when we load the rope in here, it's going around that cam, almost kind of like a pulley. And the problem with that is that puts a bend in the rope. So if we apply tension, like the foot and knee ascenders we like to use below this, then all it's going to do is it's going to lock off the system, and you won't be able to move the device up or down. So you can't rope walk with this. Instead, you got to use what's called a rad system to be able to ascend, so that it's pulling the rope upwards with a 3-to-1. But the TAZ, you don't have to do that. As soon as you start ascending and you have your neck tether or something on this, then the device will go into a passive mode where it can move up, or it can also move down and be used in like a follower self-belay mode. but it follows really nice on the rope, pretty much no friction at all whatsoever. And then when you sit back into it, it'll engage into the rope. And we have a nice flare down here at the bottom. That's something nice about using this device versus like a Petzl style device, where usually with a Petzl you have to do the roll off to the side with your brake hand when you're descending. But with the TAZ, the brake strand just goes straight down and out the bottom of the device. You don't have to do any rolling or anything like that. It just goes straight on through, so it doesn't twist up your rope as much as sometimes the GriGri or a rig can. We also have, I've never used this, but we also have some stippling kind of, or just some grooves on the top here for you to place your thumb on if you were like doing a rock climbing style belay with this, to be able to pull out some slack, I assume, or just something to rest your thumb on to disengage the cam to be able to pull a bunch of slack out. That's pretty common on a device like this. But yeah, I've been using this device for a while now, and there's not any crazy signs of wear or everything, so I expect that I'll get a lot of use out of this device before I start to see any kind of extreme wear. Now that we've gotten a closer look at the device, let's see how we can apply this tool in the tree. One of my favorite things about this device is just how easy it is to take on and off the rope, because we just have that button there and we don't have to worry about losing it. It's kind of like the Unisender, the Akimbo. Don't have to worry about losing our device, but I don't like my tie-in up here, so I just took it off, and I'm just going to reset my canopy tie real quick without having to fiddle off my whole rope branch system or anything. So the ascent and taking things off, this thing is fantastic. Now that I have my canopy anchor reset up and back where I'd like it, now it's real simple to just slap the TAZ back onto my rope. Now, as we go out and start to get working, this is where my relationship gets just a little bit more tenuous with the TAZ. So, as this is a standard descender, this is actually designed to be used with two hands. Despite there only being one lever, whenever you're using these systems, they're actually designed that you have to be operating it with a brake hand at all times. So you can grab this however you want, you're just supposed to be holding on to the other end of the rope. So the brake handles the majority of the braking, and then your brake hand is just there to finesse it out and make it nice and smooth. But this is kind of a problem when we start to get out here farther. Say we want to get out to those tips for some deadwood or some reduction. We're gonna have to start doing things like this. We can call, I was trying to think of fun names of these while I was in the car, but we'll call this the ice pick. This is a way where I'm still utilizing my hand on the rope without using two hands, so I can guide my way through the tree with my other hand instead of having to just use two hands and then just hook on everything with my feet. I'd much prefer to do something like this where I can meter the rope and hold the system so that I can guide my way out here. Now in situations like this where I don't have a lot of weight in the system, it's pretty easy to just not hold on to the rope and run the TAZ like this. But when we're in more high angle systems, or where I have to, it's a long skinny limb walk, not one that's easy like this with tons of stuff to step on, I find it a lot harder. The more weight that's in the TAZ, the touchier it is on releasing your weight. So when there's not a lot of weight, it's real easy to just, I'm just walking up here. I'm not even really leaning into my tie-in. So something like this is fine, but if I was going up like a long skinny silver maple lead, that starts to get a lot harder because it just wants to dump all your weight in like that. And in a sensitive situation, that's pretty difficult. Now, I have no issue with coming back in on this device. The only area where this starts to get tricky is something that's very important to know about devices like this, is that in a situation like this, where I'm unweighting the device, it is not supposed to be used like that without a second hand being on the rope. Because if there's complete slack in the system, since this thing is also designed to act as a a follower or as a backup system. It's meant to slide up and down the rope when there isn't weight on it. And this is the TAZ in kind of a passive or follow mode. That's what makes this device so special, is that it was designed so it could also be used as a fall arrest backup for rope access professionals. Now, something that's important to note about using this device on a rope is right here we have some 10 mil Sterling HTP. If you're using the standard 11 mil for tree climbing, then you're going to have some pretty good results with not having a lot of sit back. But as you get into the smaller diameters of rope, it's possible that if you unweight the system, it'll kind of want to creep downwards and kind of enter into that fall protection mode. So unless you give it a good sharp tug back down when you sit back into it, you might get a little bit of creep down if you're down climbing or something like that. Now there's a little piece in here that helps try to prevent that. We have this little plastic piece that tries to engage the device on the rope. Sometimes you gotta twist it up a little bit to get some bigger ropes in there. But I haven't had too many problems with it other than when I've been using it on much smaller ropes. This device is rated for, I think, down to like 9.5 mil, and using it on some just below 10 mil ropes, it's pretty slippery. Wouldn't really recommend, not that we can use it for tree climbing anyways, but wouldn't recommend using a rope that small. The larger the rope you put into it, the wider your sweet spot is going to be for like lowering yourself into something. So if you really push the size of the rope, not all 11 mil ropes are the same size. I noticed that Samson Mercury feels even a little bit larger in this device. So that is a little bit nicer. I really like the KM3. But for example, I've run it with 10 mil HTP and 10.5 mil Teufelberger Platinum, and it's so much more touchy with the smaller diameters, and you encounter a lot more of that sit back, where if you unweight the system and then sit back down into it, the device wants to creep downwards. So you just have to be really careful of that. But if you're using the correct 11 mil ropes, then you're going to have very little issue with that. Really, the biggest limitation is just getting good at using it for limb walks and stuff, because it is so hard to run it with just one hand. But they're not meant to be used like that. So that's why you don't see a lot of people using them for work positioning. So this isn't going to be the device that you reach for a really difficult, challenging climb. This is a great tool for accessing trees quickly, and for competitions, this is like the premium device that you're going to be seeing for speed ascents, and I've seen it a lot in aerial rescue. And having a descender in your kit is such a versatile tool for like either aerial rescue, or if you're rigging more complex systems, like if you're setting up a high line for life support or something like that, having a descender to position your tension base anchors and things like that is going to be super important and really nice to use. I've only had to do that a handful of times, but when you do have to do it, having the right tools makes all the difference. And tree climbing isn't the only thing I do. I do a lot of rock climbing too, and you'll see a lot of videos of rock climbers raving about these, for using these for top rope soloing. It's a fantastic tool for that, since it's made to be used in that passive kind of fall arrest mode. I've done tons of top rope soloing with it. I haven't done any lead soloing with it, but I'd certainly love to see how it works for that. But since it's a tool that just I can apply across so many disciplines, it's something that I really appreciate having around, even if it's not going to be my everyday go-to positioning system. And for the price tag, that doesn't really make it for everybody if it's not something that you're going to use every day, like a Rope Runner Pro that's going to get put on everything that you do. But it's a super cool device, and I'm really happy to have it in my bag every day for when I need it. And I hope that you find that useful, having a better understanding of this style of device. I feel like if you're coming from a tree climbing background, you're not going to be necessarily super familiar with the more standard rope access style descenders. So they're really cool devices, and I think they're important to understand and know how to incorporate them into your kit. So if you've never used a descender before and you're a tree climber and you're thinking about getting one, this is absolutely the one to go with. You're going to get the most done with the TAZ. So I hope this video was helpful. Let me know if you have any other questions about this device, and I'll see you in the next video.